Okay, I think 5:01, and we'll go ahead and get started here. Let me make sure that we're up and running. Okay, it's 26 November 2019 by the note behind me on the whiteboard. And let's see what I can join. All right. Looks like we're all set. Let me go ahead and make some adjustments. All right. Okay, thanks for stopping in again. This is LDR 340. This is week 6. And we should be sharing at this point. All right. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I apologize. All right, 5:03 p.m. We're getting started. A couple of announcements that are out there. One is I got this email, and I'm assuming you did too. Email migration for all students and adjuncts. So your email account is going to move from mock when we were at Mount Olive College .edu to University of Mount Olive.edu email domain. That's going to occur on Thursday, December 19th. Now, the significance of that is this course will be over, and then I have 4 days to post your grades. So the day I'm posting your final grades, that day is when the migration is going to begin on that evening at 2200. All right, and it's going to continue until Sunday at 08. So you're not going to have access, as it says, to Portal Guard, MyUmo, Moodle, Adobe, Zoom, email accounts, and Starfish. So plan accordingly. So what that means is I'm going to be posting your final grades. You're going to know what you get on your paper by Wednesday that week. And then I'm going to give you a full day to look at it. And with that grade plus what's finalized in Moodle should give you an idea of what your final grade is. And then Thursday at about noon is when I will plan to post your final grades, okay? Now, this also says if you want to see your grades, then selfservice.umo.edu will be available. So I guess that will work. So I don't know exactly what the ins and outs are here, but just a heads up. Suffice it to say that my ability to get your papers graded is dependent on you getting your papers in on time. A couple of you are having a hard time meeting your timelines. And I can work with you a little bit, but then at some point it becomes too much that I can't help you out with. So let's just be cognizant of that, and let's do the best we can to get through it. Okay. Announcements. You should see the announcements we're posting. I put out the assignment instructions and the case for analysis. In the past, you've seen some other things. We've gone through some reminders. We've gone through some recaps and the like. So if all else fails, that's your start point. Okay, Zoom sessions. Here under attendance expectations, you'll see where I've recorded and archived the Zoom sessions. They're labeled by week. So tonight's session will be added at the conclusion of this, and it'll be week 6 Zoom session. If you click on any of these, you will see them pop up, and there will either be the actual video in the forum here, or at a minimum will be a hyperlink to YouTube so that you can go see the video. And I encourage you to go back and look at it. At most, they're 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes long. I'm told to keep my Zoom sessions to 40 minutes. They said, they being the dean, no requirement for me to do the full 40 minutes if nobody joins. But as you all know, I tend to do that. I'm going to do it again tonight. I'm going to share with you some slides. I'm going to cover position statement again. And that way everybody can kind of see what I did here and what occurred. All right. Further on down, you'll see here are the leadership class slides. All right. If you go into this link, you will be able to find all the previous chapter slides from LDR 300 DAF text. Now, granted, these were done a year or so ago, so they may not be quite as current as I would like, but they are still within the, I think, what is it? You're on the 7th edition of the DAF text, so it's based on the 7th edition. So it's as current as can be. And it's a free resource. You can go in there. I really recommend it to all of you who had LDR 300 with me to hold on to your text just for this reason. All right. Now, for some of you, I think some of you are kind of wishing you had. All right. And others say that's fine. You got great memories and you learned a lot and you committed it. So good for you. All right. So then we continue on down and we're in week 6. So here you've got the student articles and the discussion forum, as well as the assignment location. So again, your student article grade, which amounts to 20% of your final grade, is based on the article that you've done an analysis on, that you have posted both in the discussion forum so that your fellow students can discuss with you, and I can post some feedback, and upload it into the assignment forum so that I can give you your grade. Okay, if you recall from the syllabus, your participation is part of that student article grade. Okay, there's no separate breakout. Right, this is all one and the same. It's just done this way on Moodle because that's really about the easiest way to do it. All right. Okay, I bring that up because there's a question from one of your fellow students earlier about this. And here is your weekly case for analysis. In this particular case, we're looking at a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, vice a CEO, Chief Executive Officer, but still a leader in an organization, right? So in this case, the CFO, Brian Roberts, has a way of doing things. And so this is what I want you to go through and take a look at. Now, so I ask you, who's the protagonist? In this particular case, I would expect you to tell me that the CFO, Brian Roberts, is the protagonist. Okay. Now, there might be somebody else that you want to write on from Lyft. We'll see how that goes, but you won't go wrong with Brian Roberts. All right. And then, are you analyzing this as a problem, a decision, or an evaluation? Okay. Again, it all gets down to how you're approaching the particular case or article. All right. And again, we have our case study handbook, and it tells us there are certain ways of approaching a problem diagnosis, a decision, or an evaluation. Last week's Instructor article on the CEO for Public Broadcasting System was clear. It was an evaluation. Is Ms. Karger an effective or ineffective leader? Okay, and all of you predominantly got it right. You said that she is an effective leader. Okay. Sorry, I'm having to move here. Okay. That then becomes the interesting piece to it. And remember, in an evaluation, just as in a decision, the critical element of that whole analysis is the criteria you're using in order to conduct your analysis. All right? And what would that criteria be? Well, if you look at it, I'm helping you out here in the topics. I've given you some of that criteria. Vision, leadership, business communication, growth leadership, leadership development, team leadership. Okay? In other words, you figure out the criteria you want to use, and then you evaluate him or her, your protagonist, against that criteria. That leads you then into your position statement based on your analysis, in which you would write, in this particular case, Mr. Brian Roberts is or is not an effective leader. Okay? Brian Roberts is an effective leader based on his vision, his communication skills, and how he develops junior leaders. Great. See what we did there? Again, the fundamental relationship, the one that matters the most. Your conclusion and the evidence used to support it. How convincing are you in your presentation? Okay. And then, what are the challenges? Well, there's some challenges in this aspect of getting people, and particularly allowing people to come out and have one-on-one meetings with him, okay? In this particular case, if he's got over 150 people and he's giving up 10 minutes of his time each day, well, that's a lot of people coming in and seeing him. So that's a lot of time that he is devoting, that's a lot of his time that he's devoting to subordinates. Many of you have already had the article that I tend to hand out and that I have you all study in any of my classes. It's an old Harvard Business Review article. In this particular case, it came out in the 70s, and it's called Management Time, right? Who's got the monkey? Okay. And in this, the monkey is a metaphor for a task or a challenge. And who's got the monkey on their back continues out that metaphor, all right? And in that article, you find out that the way to manage some of your time is not to tell your subordinates to hand the monkey to you, okay? Because as soon as you tell a subordinate, hey, what's your problem? And the person says it, and you say, well, let me take a look at it. You are now working through that subordinate, okay? That monkey's on your back. And so this article helps you manage that, and it gives you some insights. It gives you a wonderful primer on this aspect of initiative, okay? When you tell a subordinate to conduct or take care of a task, then it's incumbent upon you to make sure that subordinate understands what level of initiative you expect him or her to take in the performance of that task. So if it's a very unusual task and it's got a lot of potential for major impact, then you're probably going to tell that subordinate their level of initiative is to wait until further instructions, or come see me first, clear it, and then let me approve it before you could do it, and things like that. This kind of gets into, in the Marine Corps, in the military, we tend to call these confirmation briefs. All right. On things that are of a highly routine nature, almost of no consequence, then you would probably tell the subordinate, just do it, and you don't even have to report back to me, okay? You might put a qualifier on there of, let me know if there's a problem. So in the case of you, the student, with me as your instructor, there's a lot of levels of initiative that I've given you. This aspect of reading your chapters is one example where you've got the highest form of initiative. I expect you to read it, and I'm not going to check up on it, okay? And I don't need to do that. You're students, you've gone through this enough. Now, whether or not you complete the task is up to you. And there are ways I will find out if you do not complete the task, obviously. Okay, performance on quizzes is one of them. Anyway, in the end, that's kind of what we're talking about. So I'm going to go through another slide and give you another aspect of an open door policy and the like. But part of this issue of open door policy that you may want to consider is, hey, that's fine, but in an organization that relies on chain of command, be very careful about allowing people to just come straight in and see. Okay, you probably wouldn't appreciate a subordinate going around you and spending 10 minutes with the boss if they didn't check with you first. Okay, the things you may need to want to handle or want to handle. So, as a chief financial officer, as somebody in charge of a major organization, be careful the policies that you enact, because it may undercut certain things. If you're going to hold people responsible to exercise the chain of command, then don't do an open door policy, okay? Because the two conflict. That isn't to say that people can't come see you. There's other mechanisms, all right? A formal process within the Marine Corps Navy, for example, is request mass, which is a formalized procedure where any Marine or sailor can go address the commander. In most circumstances, there's some very odd nuances, but in the main, again, it's these type of things you need to think through, and it's this type of thing that I'm trying to get you to do as part of your responses to these articles, is to dig deep into it and to come up with some of these aspects where it is good or isn't good, okay? To simply say, well, we'll hire from within, or this person should be fired automatically, or, I wouldn't hire this guy to save my life. Okay, well, those are interesting statements. Now you need to back them up a little bit. What is the principle? What is the leadership concept? What is the theory that you're holding to here as part of that? Okay, don't rely on conventional wisdom and in many aspects gut instinct. Think through these a little bit, and then demonstrate that you've had some prior training on leadership, i.e. that you've gone through LDR 300, where some of these aspects are brought out. Okay. All right, so that's what's due. Now, again, you're answering these 4 areas, okay? Who is the protagonist? And if you're approaching this as a problem diagnosis, decision, or evaluation analysis, what is or are the leadership challenges? How are those challenges being handled by the leader, i.e. your protagonist? And what do you believe is the preferred method, okay? Or the leadership concepts involved, okay? Not everything's a problem, all right? And I'm not saying everything's a problem. Majority of your articles will be, but as you saw last week with this past week, with week 5, with this article on Ms. Kruger for the PBS, this was more of an evaluation, not a problem diagnosis. Now, that's not to say you couldn't approach it that way. There's certainly a couple problems that she is working through, all right? But what I'm trying to get at is fit your analysis to the subject at hand. You know, try to pick the best one, not the perfect one, not the answer. Because again, I will look at a situation and I'll see it maybe as a decision or a problem. You may find it as an evaluation or a decision. In other words, we'll kind of approach it from different aspects. It's one of the beauties of leadership. If it was all the same, if it was that easy, you wouldn't be in this class. All we do is hand you a laminated checklist and off you go, and everybody be great leaders. Okay? Not the case, and so that's why we go through these courses. All right, so let's take a look at our PowerPoint slides. And see what that gets us. All right, so again, on the weekly case analysis trends, some of you are trying to do an abstract. You're doing a great job. Those of you who've tried it and turned it in. Again, it's a concise summary of what you said, the statement that you made, the position that you took. It is not a place to just give a brief, here's what I plan to talk about, okay? Well, that's a table of contents. The abstract should already include a page header. It should say abstract on it. This is APA formatting. It's not required on the weekly cases. That said, if you've included one, I'll take a look at it. I will not grade you down on it, and but I'll let you know if it's working or not. And it's good time to practice. Okay. Most of you are getting much better on protagonist. Still was having an issue here. Again, a protagonist is the person. Okay, this is the person we're focusing on as part of your analysis, and ultimately we're trying to help. Okay, so a protagonist is not a piece of equipment. It is not a collective organization. It is not a group of people. You're defined that one person. Okay, and as I said, if you can't in an article, then pick the chief executive officer. Okay, and a quick internet search will allow you to find out who that is. Okay. Why? Because the whole idea here is leadership. We are trying to help somebody be a better leader. This is where your time now is going into these case studies and taking a shot at it. Okay, this should be energizing. This should be fun. And I think it is, because quite frankly, it's not reveling in other people's pain. It's not looking for scintillating details. What it is an opportunity to see the experience of somebody else, what they're going through, and then taking a look at it and in your own mind, work through some of these aspects and say, hey, within this framework, I would try X. I might look at Herzberg's two-factor model. Hey, I would recommend to this person that you may want to look at Fiedler's concept of contingency leadership and change your style. Hey, I may look at team building exercise in this case. Hey, this is a clear case of groupthink, and here's how you should get out of it. Here's the technique of decision making that I would recommend. Here's the level of motivation. In other words, here's your opportunity to take what you got out of LDR 300 and then get it out of the textbook, okay, get it out of the abstract and get it into a real life scenario, and then see where it happens or where it takes you. Okay, the reason we're doing current events is because we don't have the benefit of 20/20 hindsight. And so, you know, a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, it'll be fascinating to see where these people are that we're talking about and what's happening, whether or not we were able to catch some things that might have helped them out in the long run. Okay. Don't say, in my opinion, that's passive voice. Okay, I got it. It's your opinion because that's who's writing the paper. So just say it. Okay. In my opinion, the protagonist is Mr. X. Wrong. The protagonist is Mr. X. Okay. Get used to being a little more directive. Okay. You won't go wrong with that. All right. And then proofread. Some of you are turning in some papers that are rough, and I'll caution you on it because even though I'm not an English major or not teaching English, I will mark down for it on your final paper. Okay? Being able to write, communicate effectively in written word is critical for a leader. Okay? And so your ability to go in, get your thoughts on paper in an organized, focused fashion, using an appropriate amount of brevity where you need to, and then making sure you spell check your paper and proofread your paper, because spell check may not catch a word that you're using incorrectly, but that you spelled correctly. Okay? But you should be catching this, not your boss. Okay? And so in some aspects, I'll ask that you look at me as your boss. Would you want your boss reading what you've written? Okay? Believe me, I read everything that you all write. That's one of the reasons why it takes a little while to get your feedback. Okay? All right. So let's continue on in this aspect. Again, problem essays. You're presenting arguments that consist of content favorable to your position statement. In other words, you've diagnosed the problem. You said the protagonist needs to communicate better, needs to be a better leader, needs to hire better people. Great. Now, argue it. In other words, don't just tell me he needs to communicate better, or she. Okay, I get that. And my high school senior daughter would have gotten that. Okay, you've had the benefit of LDR 300. So get in there and pull out something that backs up your argument. Okay? All right. Decision essays. Okay, within that framework, the decision needs to be made to do something or not to do something, or the third option, which is do nothing. In other words, buy more time. Okay? An evaluation is where you're going in and you're evaluating this person. For the context of our class, since this is a leadership class, then most evaluation essays will be your protagonist, Mr. or Miss X, is or is not an effective leader. Okay? And if you're saying is or is not, then what is the evidence you're going to use to support that? In other words, what are the factors? What is the pieces of evidence? What are the 3 to 5 leadership concepts that you are using as criteria upon which you're basing this position of is or is not? Okay? All right. Again, here's a leadership case study paper. Should be no surprises on this. Nobody's come in and told me they're having an issue, so I'm assuming everybody's tracking. Don't get caught short on this. Okay, this paper's coming up and it's going to be due here in just a couple short weeks. So hopefully everybody's been working on it. All right, so let's get back to this whole idea of a position statement. Yeah, I've showed you these slides. I've sent them to you today. Remember, every graded event, you're going to get feedback. Even the exams, I put in feedback of where you could find the answer that you may have gotten wrong, or I say good job if you got it right. I don't think you need any more feedback than that if you've got the question right. But as far as the student and the instructor articles, I am providing you feedback both in your grade and in a file that I've attached as part of that. So if you're trying to figure out where you stand, then the first place I would ask you to look is in the feedback that I've provided. Okay? if you're not addressing some of the things I'm looking for, if you're not telling me how you analyze this article as a problem in decision evaluation, then that might explain why you got docked a few points. Okay? You've been given a great framework upon which to build your skills for looking at cases. Okay? Your text, Case Study Handbook, is phenomenal. Okay? Use the techniques. Okay? All right. So your position statement is the roadmap for the paper. It tells the reader what to expect from what you're about ready to tell them. Okay, it's a single sentence in your first paragraph. It presents your argument. Okay, it is the fundamental relationship. Again, your conclusion and the evidence you're going to use to support it. Okay, it should be sharply focused. In fact, if it is, then your paper will be focused and will be much better and much more effective in argument. Okay, nobody likes to read an essay that has no purpose or direction. Okay, nobody likes to sit and listen to somebody meander, okay, without a clear point or a direction they're heading. Okay, same thing with your instructor. Okay, all right, it's identical to a thesis. A thesis statement is what you plan to argue and how you plan to argue it. We're talking the same thing. So again, start writing these. Okay, these are critical to any paper. Okay, particularly in the workforce. All right. So I ask you a variety of questions. Okay, who is your protagonist? And then are you approaching this as a decision and evaluation or problem diagnosis? Okay, and that's where you start to address what are the leadership challenges and how they're being handled, what you think are the preferred. Okay, and you go through all your analysis, and then you're going to take the position, just as your text tells you to. Okay, so in the case of the instructor's article of this past week, week 5, who was the protagonist? PBS CEO, Ms. Paula Kerger. Okay, I gave you these slides last week. Now, hopefully some of you saw those slides, because that would have helped you. I mean, I essentially gave you the answer, or an answer, I should say, to the instructor article. I kind of wrote it out for you. Okay. I like to think, and I'm sure all of you did your own work. Okay. But in this particular case, the protagonist is Paula Kerger. Everybody got that? Great job. Okay. Is this a decision, an evaluation, or problem diagnosis? I see it as an evaluation. We already know that she's an effective leader, or at least we think she is, based on how the article is presenting it. So let's pull some criteria out of the article. Let's review that process or that information, and then we'll take a position. Okay, your position is either a yes or a no. Nothing in between. Yes, no. Okay, is PBS CEO Ms. Paula Kerger an effective leader, or is not an effective leader? Okay, those are your options. All right, in this particular case, we need to build our evidence. What's the criteria we're going to use? So I list them out, 1 through 5 here. Okay, she steered the public broadcaster into the digital era. She canceled the talk shows of a couple yucks who wound up having sexual harassment allegations against them. Okay, she had a ready answer when asked, "What is your explainer of cocktail parties?" In other words, if you can't briefly describe your organization or what you're in business for, or what you're seeking accreditation for, in 5 minutes or less, what is typically called an elevator pitch, the time it takes to ride an elevator, then you're at a loss. Okay, effective communication doesn't mean you do an hour-long presentation with 52 slides. Some of it is just catching the boss and making your pitch within a 30 seconds or a minute. and getting that boss to say, hey, I like your idea, we're going to run with it. Or say, hey, I'm intrigued, come and get on my schedule. Okay, that's what we're at. All right, number 3, she was talking about Ken Burns, noted historian. He works a certain way. They say they voice out a whistleblower structure. We are explicit. We expect people to abide by the same principles and values of PBS. Starting to sound like culture a little bit, doesn't it? PBS having its own values and principles. Okay, number 4, you do have certain assumptions about how your organization works and how people within it behave. We've since looked at all of our practices and the way we deal with our producers to make sure everyone understands how we expect people to operate. Brilliant. Brilliant. Charles Brewer did the same thing. Okay, before he even launched his business, he already had laid out his principles. Okay, his moral principles that his organization, whatever it was going to be, was going to follow. I've got a slide here to show you. Okay, so then the question kind of becomes, you as a leader, what are some of your moral principles? Okay, write them down, get them down on paper. Those then become the basis of your code of conduct or code of ethics or whatever you want to call it. Every organization has one. Now, whether or not we abide by it, whether or not anybody's ever even looked at it, is a different story. I would look at, like, for example, Wells Fargo. Okay? And then number 5, Ms. Kerger personifies the female leader as described in the LDR 300 DAP text. I'll give you the page number here, 339. Female leaders are rated as having more idealized influence, providing more inspirational motivation, being more individual and considerate, and offering more intellectual stimulation. Now, that's a gross generalization in the main, certainly. Okay, individuals vary, just as men vary, just as women vary. We all vary. Okay, that said, this is one that we'll take a look at. Do we think Ms. Kerger personifies these? And quite frankly, I think we all agree that she does. Okay, so now we've gotten all this, we're ready to write our position statement, our thesis statement. So I think Ms. Kerger is an effective leader. All right, and then I'm going to kind of pick and choose between these 5 and kind of figure out how I want to write it. And I've color-coded it so that you can see at the bottom of the screen where those phrases came from and how I built the position statement. PBS CEO Ms. Paula Kerger is an effective leader. That's my conclusion. Is that clear? Is that strong? Yeah. Is it easy to find? Yeah, it's right there. Okay. Is there any doubt what I think? It should not be. Okay. Now I've got to give you my evidence. So I believe Paula Kerger is an effective leader due to the fact that she demonstrates the qualities as identified in the LDR 300 DAP text, that she has a vision and is able to implement that vision. She had a vision of getting PBS into the digital era. And did she implement it? Yes. Okay. She can explain and communicate her organization's mission with efficiency. Okay. Did she have a ready answer when asked the question? Yes. Okay. Does she know her organizational culture? And does she enforce the code of ethics on all employees from the top down? In other words, does she walk the walk as she talks the talk? Yes. Okay. So there it is. There's your position statement. Not that hard, is it? Okay. Okay. So I mentioned to you Charles Brewer. Okay, American entrepreneur. He founded MindSpring. Okay, before that, he was frustrated with his internet service provider, so he is the one who invented Earthlink. He since sold it and has moved into his own organizations, whatever they are. Okay. But his original CV&Bs, core values and beliefs, were developed before he even had the idea of MindSpring. Okay, and obviously he carried these with him to Earthling. Okay, he often said he did not know what type of business he wanted to start, but that list of CVs and Bs would rule whatever it was. He lists out 9 of them. We respect the individual. We require complete honesty. We make commitments. Work is an important part of life. I mean, these are great. Okay, and again, he did this before he started his business. You got a unique opportunity here. Sorry, I had a hard time saying that. In that you are here in school and have an opportunity to develop, while you're thinking about it, some of your core values and beliefs. Okay. All right. I promised you another slide. This gets back to your article for this week, the Instructor article. Okay, where we're talking about Lyft's CFO having his open door policy. Okay. Those of you that have been in the military and are certain in large organizations know how incredibly frustrating it is to sit through a long, weekly, maybe even daily, organizational meeting that just goes on and on. Okay, and how inefficient that is in passing information. Okay. Within the framework of project management, and those of you that are going to go on and get your PMP certification will learn this. Project managers has what is called a Scrum. Okay, and the idea of behind a Scrum is to cut down on these meetings and the length of time to the degree that a Scrum, in most cases, is really only, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And most cases are done standing up in front of the boss's desk. Okay, in other words, not getting comfortable in a nice leather, upholstered chair while sipping coffee in an executive room. Okay, and the idea is get the meeting on and get it done. Further, there's this concept called pigs and chickens. Okay, pigs and chickens is an analogy. It comes from a model where you're defining what type of role the attendee of that meeting is playing for that daily Scrum meeting. There's a choice, pigs or chickens. Okay. If the Scrum attendee is a pig, then it means that he is directly accountable for completion of the task at hand. Okay, he's involved. It is his bacon on the line. Forgive the metaphor. If the attendee is a chicken, then he may be involved somewhat in the task at hand, but it's more of a support role. Okay, and these roles will morph and change over time depending on where everybody's at in that particular project or in that particular day. Okay, the roles are usually self-assigned. Okay, it's designed to make sure that the Scrum doesn't go too long or drift off topic. Okay, in a Scrum, only the pigs can talk. Only the pigs. Okay, this idea of pigs and chickens comes from a joke. Okay, and I highlighted here on the slide. Pig and chicken are walking down the road. Chicken looks at the pig and says, "Hey, why don't we own a breakfast restaurant?" The pig looks back at the chicken and says, "Hey, good idea. What do you want to call it?" Chicken thinks about it and he says, "Why don't we call it ham and eggs?" And the pig says, "I don't think so." And the chicken says, "Well, why not?" He goes, "Well, I'd be committed, but you'd only be involved." Okay, so if you think about it, ham and eggs sounds good for one, not so much for the other. Okay, pigs and chickens. All right, I hope everybody enjoyed that. I'm sorry I took you long. It's now 5:45, so I'm going to end this. This will be posted on YouTube here in just a few minutes. Nobody dialed in, that's fine. This is optional, but I hope you got something out of it, and I look forward to catching up with you all here in the next few days as I see what you're written for your student articles. Okay, hey, keep charging. Everybody's doing good work. okay? Keep after it, okay? Have some fun with this. And then let me know if you're having a problem, okay? All right, thank you. Good night.